Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Our Small Footprint. My name is Nyssa. If you're new here, we are a large family living off-grid in Australia. It is Sunday and I have filmed all week, and that would be the next video to come out, except that I don't think there's anywhere near enough content in that week's videos that actually is homogenous enough to use as a video. So we might have to create that today and then start fresh tomorrow. I don't know. We have had the dingo we had one of the little dingoes, I'll put a photo in here, hired for the week. So we spent the week making the most of having that because it cost us $1,100 for the 6 days that we had it. So we needed to make sure that we used it appropriately. And we dug leachate pits, we cleared space to move the chicken pens, we dug mum's water lines, we did all sorts of things with it. None of which I really filmed because I just find it really hard to film while I'm doing stuff. But also half the time Darryl was out there doing stuff while I was doing stuff in here, and it was just, I say it all the time, I don't know how these people who DIY videos and stuff do it, and how they do it so aesthetically and then have all that time to edit it and make it look pretty. And we just get in and get the work done, which is why most of my videos are predominantly in the kitchen, because it's the easiest place for me to record. So I've come out here this morning. It's Sunday morning, as I said. There's Darryl and some of the kids are at church. The twins are home with me. They are putting some washing on for me at the moment. And I've come out to my kitchen and realised that nobody cleaned up after dinner. Like, the dinner got put away, but that was it. So what I'm doing at the moment is a bit of a kitchen reset. I'm going to give my cast iron a bit of a scrub, which we do on a regular basis, and they could just do with it at the moment. So I'm going to boil some water in my cast iron and give them a bit of a scrub and a clean, and a wipe down of my stovetop and my benches and everything else, while I have a contemplate on what else I need to do. I have no meat out at the moment. Everything's in the freezer. I have some leftover pulled pork. I don't think I filmed it, but I put some pork chunks frozen from the freezer into the pressure cooker and cooked them the other day, and we've been eating through that each day. So last night I made some rice in salsa water with some black beans and some corn and pulled pork and stuff for dinner. So all of that got put away, but it didn't get cleaned up afterwards. No one did dishes last night either. I'm not overly impressed with that. So I'm going to give the kitchen a bit of a reset. I really need to find somewhere to put my yogurt maker until there's still no power to the bench behind me at the moment. Until we get the rest of that wall up, we're not going to run power cables through. Darryl's going to run it through the wall, and the wall got put on hold because of the dingo. So while we were paying to have that dingo here, it needed to be sorted. So it needed to be used to its utmost to, compensate for the cost of that. So hopefully we'll get the ply up over the next few days, but we also bought some timber posts to start relocating the chicken pens. So we're going to be dismantling the old chicken pens and relocating them. We left all the trees in the chicken pens originally. We left all the trees in the middle of the pens, and we did that on purpose because we wanted trees for the chickens, but leaving the ones in the middle of the pens turned out to be a really bad idea, because we have to roof the pens otherwise if we want to keep the chickens separate, and we keep certain breeds separate for certain egg colours and things like that. Like this is some eggs that were collected yesterday. I don't know. The lighting's not the greatest, so it's not going to show up fantastically well, but we have some gorgeous colours at the moment. We've got these really nice dark browns, but we've also got some speckled Summer. I don't think the lighting's working real well for me here. Summer browns. We've got some really nice olive coloured eggs, and these are kind of purple when they're first collected, but it's been cold overnight. We've got some moisture that's come on them. We've got these lovely dark green ones and blues and all these sorts of things, and at the moment I'm not tracking who's laying what very well, because the pens are too hard to handle at the moment. The roofing is not appropriate, so we were using shade cloth and things like that, except that with all those trees in the middle of them, the leaf fall, and then the turkeys roost on top, and their poop creates pockets. And anyway, we want to put Avery mesh as the roofing, but we can't do that without proper rafter type things, and we can't do that because the pens are currently too wide. So we looked at narrowing them, but the tree roots are too much to put. Anyway, it's going to work out best to relocate the chicken pens, So what we've bought is some extra posts to start the perimeter, and then we're going to slowly dismantle the ones that we've currently got and move the chickens and go on, so forth, so forth. So I'll share that as we do it as much as I can. As I said, I suck at sharing the DIY stuff. So we're in the process of doing that as well as this wall, and of course I have this week off work, but I go back to work the next week and the kids go back to school, so that always puts a crimp in getting stuff done as quickly as we'd like. So yeah, there's lots on the cards. And then now that we've dug our leachate pits and everything else, we need to look at building our extra bathroom and toilet space so that we can upgrade our composting toilets and things like that. So, it's just, never ending, and always a dollar value to it as well. So figuring that out. We also had a passing in the indirect family. It was my uncle by marriage's father, so we know him well, but indirect family. And Mum is going to have to travel down for the funeral in a couple of weeks. And then the week after that was the week that I was planning groceries. I don't know if that's happening yet because I put off booking the Airbnb to make sure that it wasn't going to conflict with the funeral. And I haven't booked it yet, so I don't know if it's still available, but... life. I know, everyone's busy. It's just, it feels a little overwhelming at the moment. So anyway, I'm going to get this kitchen cleaned up and looking like I want to be in it. I also, over the last week, have had heaps of semi-fails of my sourdough, and I do struggle every winter. The temperature just is not the greatest for it, and I can't seem to regulate it enough, and we shall see. I might just start using it as an adjunct to my yeast, do same day stuff. The starter's perfect, but it's just not getting there. So a couple of grams of yeast in with the starter will still make the bread have that chewy texture that is preferable, but we'll see. Anyway, I've got a lot of breadcrumbs at the moment. So yeah, I'm going to clean up. All right, all my benches wiped down. I've got the cast iron pans with some water in them coming up to a boil so that I can give them a good scrape and clean. And then I'll re-oil them and get them going again. I don't know if I did mention a while back, I don't know if you can see it there, but that I was going to get myself one of those little camping twin tub washing machines for my kitchen. So I finally got that. I need to set it up behind the sink, which needs some concrete pieces to put it there. But for the moment, I've just got it hooked there. And the idea is that my dishcloths and tea towels and stuff, as I go throughout the day, I can just toss them into there and then just fill them with boiling water, a bit of vinegar and bicarb, a bit of bleach and stuff, and have them soak overnight and then give them a spin and rinse the next day and hang them up. And then that way I will always have clean dish towels, tea towels, cloths and stuff in my kitchen, because part of the thing is that they go to the bathroom, they get thrown in the washing machine, and then they go inside and they don't always make it back here. I don't know how I don't have any tea towels, because Darryl buys me secondhand ones from the thrift shop in town regularly, like bags full of them, and I have trouble finding them. So this is going to hopefully fix that problem. I can keep them nice and clean, and I can keep them in this space. I actually also bought a cheap airer, so it's one that'll just screw onto the wall, probably behind the new wall, that I can hang them in direct sunlight as well, so that I can just take control of those without having to worry about it, because I hate not being able to find a clean tea towel or dishcloth when I want them, and just the way our bathroom is and the way our washing is done and things like that is just, yeah. So I'm trying to bypass that to keep my kitchen more efficient, because I spend a lot of time in here and I earn money from it. So, so yeah, those pans are boiling. All my benches have been cleaned and sanitized and cleared, put dishes away, tidied up. So now I need to figure out what I'm going to do. So first up, I might go to the freezers and see what I've got in the way of meats and stuff that need to be pulled out and defrosted and used, because I'm really not sure what I'm doing for dinner tonight. I've gotten a bit behind on my planning. I don't know, how many weeks into the shop are we? Like 3, 4? When did we go? Like, I want to say it was like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th maybe of June. So we must be like 4 weeks in, which is always a little bit of a tipping point of all the fresh stuff is gone. We've got frozen veggies, and Darryl actually went to Toowoomba yesterday to drop the tractor back, and I got him to grab just a bag of potatoes so that we could have some potatoes with something. A bag of potatoes doesn't go very far though, and when you're buying them from Coles, they're $4 a kilo, which is a lot of money for potatoes. Considering I get 5 kilo bags for $10 at the most when I go in. So anyway, but yes, we're pretty much out of all fresh foods. I think there's a few zucchinis left that really need to be grated and frozen, and there's some carrots I think left in the bottom of the fridge. But other than that, we've used everything else. So now becomes the more challenging parts of wanting to make food that I want to eat that is also somewhat nutritionally balanced. But I have to plan ahead for, so I have to pull meat out to do so. So let me go and have a look at what's in the freezers and decide what I'm going to pull out, and then, and then I might mix up some bread. But I want to check what meat we've got so I can decide what I'm doing for meals as to which bread will best support those meals. So I pulled a variety of things out. I've got some chicken breasts, a pork belly. The pork belly will need to be completely defrosted before I cook that, so that'll be like 2 or 3 days away. 3 bags of mince. I don't know whether it's straight beef mince or it's sausage mince. Still beef, but with the flavourings in it, but I'll figure it out once it's defrosted and I can smell it, and I'll do something with it. Meatballs, something, wrap it in pastry, don't know. I found a 1.5 kilo of diced chuck, so that'll be good for something slow cooked, so I'll stick that in the bottom. And I found a silver side that obviously didn't fit in one of the vacuum seal bags at the time, so it's a little bit freezer burnt, which is fine because I'll brine it. So, but it does mean that it needs to be defrosted as well. So I'll stick it in the fridge, I'll get it at least semi-defrosted, and then I'll stick it in the brine for a week. And it can finish defrosting in there if need be, and then I will smoke it probably next weekend. So I don't know, there's a few meals throughout the week in amongst this if I can get anything defrosted. All right, as per usual, the days got away from me. Mum came down, we had eggs on toast for breakfast and stuff like that. This was one of the last loaves of bread that I did. Perfectly edible, but again, still just not quite exactly what I was after. But we're gonna do some bread at the moment just to use the sourdough starter up, and we will figure it out. So I'm gonna do a couple of different things. First thing I'm gonna do is mix up a dough that I'm going to let ferment in the fridge for like till tomorrow this sort of time, to make a bit of a focaccia type thing, one of those fridge fermented ones. Now a lot of people use like the, I don't know how it's pronounced, tatzong or whatever it is, where they cook off the flour and water method before they do a long ferment in yeast with a yeasted dough. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of my starter, because basically that's the softening agent, right? So I'm just going to use 50 grams of starter in my dough recipe like normal. And then the plan is to also do one of the, I've spoken about it a few times, the Artisan Bread in 5. I own the ebook, so we're going to give it a go. So we're going to mix this up like normal first. We've got 375 grams of liquid, a little bit of oil, some warm water, and a bit of cool water because I overboiled the kettle. And we're going to add some yeast to it as well, because that starter is not going to be enough. All right, so let's have, I'm curious. Yeah, a teaspoon, that was a half teaspoon twice. So a teaspoon of yeast in my yeast here is about 5 grams. So we're going to do that. We're going to add salt and flour. I'm going to mix it up, rough mix it up. I'm going to do some stretch and folds of this one and let it proof a little bit over a couple of hours, and then I'm going to stick it in the fridge until tomorrow, and then try and cook it as a flat sort of a focaccia to use for lunches tomorrow. That's the idea for this one. And then I'm going to mix up a batch of the artisan bread in 5, but I'm going to use the rest of this somewhat flat starter in it as well as the yeast, and see what we end up with, because that might be the way I want to do it in future. This jumper is filthy, isn't it? This is why I don't wear pale colours. I need to give it a soak in some nappy sand. Anyway, I'm going to, I need to get salt. The goal here is for 900 grams total for this. So yeah, I am going to mix it up. I am going to do some stretch and folds on this one, and then I'll probably put it in a plastic container, a well-oiled plastic container, in the fridge until tomorrow, and do the whole pull it out and let it proof in a pan with some oil to see if we can get a decent focaccia out of it without worrying about overproofing and all that sort of thing. So we'll just mix that together like that, cover that up, and I'll just work that over the next couple of hours before it goes in the fridge. Alright, so the Artisan 5, the base recipe for it is 680 grams of warm water. This is still a bit hot. We're just using some cool water as well as the warm water because I forgot I was boiling the kettle for it and it was overheated. So 680 of warm water. Then it wants 10 grams of yeast, 17 to 25 grams of salt, or 1 tablespoon. There is cup measures in this book. The recipe is for free in a bunch of different places, so I'm not saying anything that you can't find. But the book has a whole bunch of different flavour variations and methods and stuff in it as well. It's quite an interesting read if it's something you're interested in. And then it wants 910 grams of flour. I'm probably going to have to grab my other flour bucket. Now, the thing about the Artisan in 5 recipes too is that they actually just use all-purpose flour. I'm using my baker's flour because I've got it. But the theory is that you can get away with using just standard all-purpose plain flour. I need to get my other bucket. I don't know if I have mentioned or not, I bought some of the Kegland buckets because they were recommended by Bush Edge Homesteading and they looked really good. And they're not cheap, but I decided to invest in them. I have some pros and cons to them. Yes, they are much easier to open than the blue lidded buckets, and that is fantastic. They still have all the recess in here. So this one has been stored over in storage for a couple of weeks because this was flour that hadn't been opened in a while. So the top of the buckets get filthy as usual, but that's fine. But the bucket lids have a gap. Probably can't see what I'm doing, and I don't want to move it and risk getting all the dirt in the flour. So where the bucket screws in, let me get this clean and then I'll show you. The lid screws into the top here, and this is the edge where the lid is. So let me grab the dirty lid to show you. So the lid goes on like a gamma lid and screws in, right? And that's fine. Except if you'll notice in this dirty bucket, this spot here is on the inside of the lid. So when you unscrew it, that edge there is still exposed. And as you can see, just by putting the lid on and off, there's some dust. So I clean it before I unscrew the lid as much as possible, but then I have to be careful to sort of grab it from the edge and make sure that it goes out rather than into the flour. Now, it's always worst when the bucket's been stored for a while, not open and closed, because I will give that lid, I'll give that lid a good clean, and it won't be leaving as much dust. I'll just dust it off really well. But it still happens. It's still within a day of not using the bucket or whatever, you get a bit of a build-up of that dust. Now, it's just dust. It's not going to kill me even if it gets into the flour. That's not, you know, that is the way we live and all. But it's a little bit annoying for such an expensive bucket that is promoted for food storage, and the fact that it has that bit of a flaw is a bit, yeah, a bit frustrating. So anyway, I like the buckets. They are much easier to open and close than the blue buckets, and that's great. But a lot of the problems that I have with the blue buckets are also an issue with these as well. So anyway, just thought I'd point that out. So 9-10 grams of flour, and what I was going to do, which I should have done with the water and didn't think about it, was I was going to put the rest of whatever starter is left in here so that I can feed it and use this as a bit of a help along with the fact that it's a low yeast fridge proofed dough, and we will see what it does. That was about 100 grams of starter that went in there as well. And then all we're going to do is we're going to mix it up, and all they want you to do in this bread, the Artisan M5, is just to bring it into a shaggy dough, just to make sure that there's no lumps of flour. So use whatever tools you want to use, and make sure that it's, you know, scraped down and everything's wet, and that's all you need to do. And then you stick it straight. Oh no, you proof it for a couple of hours, just at room temperature. I'll put it in the proofing box for room temperature for here. And then you stick it in the fridge and you use it from the fridge. So over the next few days, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try. So this apparently makes 4 1-pound-ish loaves. So 4 500 odd gram loaves, 450 gram loaves. So all you do is from the fridge, you flour it and pick up a lump of it and gently shape it, and then let it rest or, you know, warm up, and then bake it. So we're going to give that a go and see what the flavors like, what the texture's like, and things like that. And if this works, then I might just use the sourdough starter in this fashion for the moment as well, and then I can do quick proofs in the proofing box, and the rest of it's done in the fridge, much like I do a pizza dough, I suppose. So I'm just going to wet my hands, give this a good mix, and then let it proof. All right, I put the focaccia dough in the fridge before we started chainsawing and stuff. We've managed to clear the chicken pen. I'll put a little clip in here of the chicken area that we're going to do. And this is the Artisan M5 dough. So this is going to go in the fridge for tonight, and I'm going to try pulling a knob off it tomorrow to use. So it's gone flat on the top, proofed and then gone flat. So we're just going to leave it. We're going to leave the air that's caught in it and stick it in the fridge, and we'll test that out tomorrow. Dinner tonight, I have heaps of this rice left, this red rice with corn and black beans and pulled pork and stuff. I'm going to heat some of this up. I've got some corn chips, and there is some salsa on the shelf, and I'm going to make a really quick cheese saucy type thing. I'm just going to do like a cheese sauce with a bit of cream cheese and stuff in it, just to give it, you know, some thickness and stuff. Really simple. I'm going to cook off some flour and butter first in the Thermomix, and then I'm just going to add a bit of flour, a bit of milk, and then a whole lot of cheese, and we'll have like a thick cheese sauce type thing to go with this and the corn chips and some salsa, and that's going to be dinner for tonight. Or they can put it in burritos if they want. They can put it in tortillas with the cheese and stuff, up to them, but super simple. And then that's it. And my shirt is even dirtier than I started the day with, because I just went and did all those trees and stuff. And that's it for today. I didn't end up making those muffins. I was going to, but I didn't. So no dessert as such for tonight. So I'm just melting that butter, going to add flour, going to cook the flour off, milk, cheese, garlic, onion, all those sorts of flavours, cheese dip. I cooked it off. I forgot to put baking paper in the pan for some unknown reason. I don't know. I had no idea why I didn't do it, because I normally always do it. But anyway. So it's lovely and fluffy, lovely and edible. It's just a little bit mangled on the bottom. So all I'm doing is I'm cutting it up into sandwich pieces, because that was the plan for this today. I fried off a whole bunch of thin cut Kransky, a whole bunch of fried eggs. I've got some cheese, mayo, onion jam, and we're just going to have Kransky egg sandwich things for lunch today. So it definitely worked. It's crispy on the bottom, it's nice and airy, so I will do it again. I will just remember to put baking paper in it. All right, so I took some footage of the 5 bread and 5 dough while I was doing it, but there was a lot of noise going on, so I just took footage, so I'm going to talk over it now. So the bread and 5 dough was in that tub, and it had been mixed up yesterday about lunchtime and put in the fridge. You can theoretically use it after 2 hours of just sitting proofing, but otherwise you can put it in the fridge for up to 14 days from that point and use it from there. Now I pulled it out. It wasn't a lot of dough in the scope of how much bread I generally make, so I decided to just shape it all into some pieces. I didn't weigh them out. And in hindsight, I probably should, just because of cooking times. But what I decided to do was do a bit of an experiment. So I shaped them into 4 different balls, 4 slightly different size balls by the, I didn't weigh it, but by the looks of it. And then I left it on the mat to rest. I'm not entirely sure how long it should rest for, and it's pretty chilly today. So I let it rest for about half an hour, but I reckon it probably could have gone a bit longer, because I then put it in the oven. So I put the two larger ones onto a ceramic stone in the oven that I had preheated. I then put one into one of the bread bakers that was preheated and one that was cold, just to compare the two of them and see what happened. All right, so this is all that footage for you. I don't know if I have to put music over some of it and stuff too, because I'm not sure how long it went for, but that's what I did with the dough, and decided to use the whole tub just to do these experiments. After baking, so the ones on the stone were these two. I did one that had 3 scores in it and one that had 1. Now, I think these are probably slightly undercooked, but they smelt like they were burning because this bit was a bit too close to the edge, and I thought that they were, so I pulled them out, and I probably should have left them a little bit longer. They're very soft, and I don't know, we'll cut them open when they're cool, we'll do something with them. The texture of them seems all right. The other 2 are these ones. Now, Now these are cooked a little bit better. I left them a little bit longer. So these are a better colour, better crust. These definitely needed to be cooked a little bit longer. This is the one that went into a preheated I'm pretty sure this is the one that went into the preheated one, and it's got a little bit more of an ear and is a little bit darker, has a little bit better of a spread. This one went into the cold one, which, as you can see, the ear is a little bit different. So this one had a bit more oven spring going straight into the hot one. But they seem okay. And the idea is that I could turn these into little crusty bread rolls, potentially, if I broke it up into smaller pieces, if I wanted that artisan style crusty sourdough bread rolls, but without the significant effort of the, like if I did it in the fridge. But I don't know, they sound nice, they feel nice and light. This one feels a bit heavy. This one definitely was a bit undercooked. This one a little less undercooked, but this one's definitely, and the way that it has broken like that, it's a bit odd. But these 2 are pretty perfectly cooked, so when I cut them open I'll show you, but we'll figure out, we'll do something with these tomorrow. I've still got a little bit of the focaccia left over too that was a bit crumbly because I forgot to put baking paper in the pan. So we've got plenty of bread for tomorrow. I do have starter that should be used, but the thing is that I could use that starter to create dough now that I don't potentially use until tomorrow or the next day. That's the idea with the Artisan M5 too. the bread in 5. So we'll see, but that's the results from those. Dinner-wise tonight, the only thing that's really defrosted is some chicken. So I might do, actually, I think I've got some udon noodles. Maybe I'll do an udon noodle stir fry with some chicken and frozen veg. Darryl is in town with Apollo. Apollo's got a bit of a throat infection, so he's at the doctor's at the moment. We got the wall done behind me, as you would have seen. It's not finished. We haven't stained it or anything yet, and we haven't got shelves up or anything like that, but the wall is up. So yeah, we got some stuff done today. Not as much as I would like, but some days are just a bit like that. All right, so dinner tonight. This will end up being a bit of a what we eat in a week, I think, with some other stuff scattered through it. This is just over 1 kilo of chicken cut into some strips for stir fry. We're going to use frozen vegetables, and we're going to use the udon noodles. I'm going to make the stir fry sauce. I loosely base it on the Charlie sauce on Recipe 10 Eats. I just find it works quite well. So we have oyster sauce, we have soy sauce, we have some sesame oil, some Shaoxing wine or Chinese cooking wine. I don't think they drink it anyway. I think it's purely for cooking, but Shaoxing wine. And then some sugar and white pepper. Got white pepper here. Some sugar. And then we're going to mix this up. We're going to put a little bit of this on the chicken to marinate it, and then the rest of it I actually add a little bit of water and chicken stock, chicken bouillon, water and some cornstarch to it. Fix that up and pour just a touch over the, like that. And that'll only sit for like 20 minutes anyway. And then to this, I will add 30 grams of cornstarch. Sometimes I add a little bit more, depends on what else I'm doing with it. And then I'm going to top it up with a little bit of water and a little bit of the Knorr chicken stock, just because we like our stir fries saucy. So I've just realized that when she serves it anyway, she does the same thing. She adds water to it. I suppose they just don't make this quantity of, she doesn't make this quantity of sauce to use all at once, whereas we tend to use pretty much this whole lot in one big serve because there's 8 of us. So water, I add a little bit of bouillon because I would normally add chicken stock to it, and then the cornstarch, and sometimes it actually could, by the colour, could probably add a little bit more water if I wanted, and I quite often put a lid on it and give it a shake because you can see that there's a little bit of the oyster sauce sitting in the bottom, so shaking it works better. So I cooked off the chicken in a bit of oil, and then I added the whole bag of steamed veg. So we're just using this mix that I always buy. Every shopping trip, this is what I buy. And then put the lid on it so they'd steam a little bit, and now we're just frying them off. Not the most optimal veggies for a stir fry, but they work fine. Plenty of liquid in there for them to sort of steam in there and retain their crunch and stuff. I've got the noodles. I buy these udon noodles every time I shop. They are shelf stable ones, which is fantastic. All I do is I stick them in a pot of water, and bring it to the boil. And by the time it's boiling, I flick it off because they've all separated and they're nice and tender and ready to be rinsed and put in with the stir fry. Now, normally I would add the noodles and then the stir fry sauce. I am going to add the stir fry sauce first, pull out a plate for Darryl before I add the noodles to it. Because he won't eat the noodles and it won't really make that much of a difference. So actually not sure if I need all of this stir fry sauce. We're going to start with I'm just going to put it all in. I can water it down a bit if need be. So get the stir fry sauce on there, the pan's still on high heat. That cornstarch is going to make it nice and sticky. So heat that through till it thickens and goes sticky with the cornstarch in there. Pull a plate out for Darryl. He'll put some chili oil on top of it, and then I will introduce these noodles because they should be ready to go by then. They're almost split up. So almost, I find that it takes, the time it takes for it to come up to a boil is how long it takes for these noodles to just fall apart without breaking. So then, see, this is already going, thickening and silkying up. You can see when you drag along the pan, I don't know if you can see it from there, but it leaves a streak on the pan. So we will grab a bowl out for Darryl. I'll add the noodles, and then we've got stir-fried noodles for dinner. And there you go, well-coated udon noodles, veggies, chicken, ready to be served. And Darryl's got a plate of stir-fry as well. And he can have whatever else he wants with that. He could put some eggs on it or something, fry a couple of eggs off. I might do that actually. I've got some eggs there that need to be used, so I might fry a couple of eggs off to put on top for him as well. And that is dinner tonight. Alrighty, so checking if the mic was on. It is Tuesday, and I pulled all those bits and pieces out of the freezer the other day, so now we're working through it. The pork belly is not quite defrosted, but it might be before dinner tonight, I think maybe. And I got Darryl to get some potatoes the other day, so we've got some potatoes, steamed veg, pork belly, whatever. The mince is almost there. Again, I probably will do that tomorrow, and I might turn it into meatballs or something along those lines. I'm not real sure. And the stewing beef is not quite defrosted, but it's close, but beef can last longer in the fridge, and the silver side is still very frozen. The other thing I pulled out was chicken to make chicken nuggets or chicken burger patties. So I pulled out a variety of different packs. So we've got a 2 kilo pack, a kilo, 2 half kilos, plus a kilo of the traditional bacon. So what I'm going to do today, some of this is still semi-frozen, but that's fine for the purposes of turning it into chicken fast. So we're going to turn all this into chicken fast, and then it'll be refrigerated. It needs to be refrigerated for a little while once it's been turned into fast for texture purposes and things like that. And then lately I've been freezing it as patties pre-breaded, because breading it is such a time-consuming thing that it's easier just to have them frozen as patties and to bread them as we eat them. So I was going to do like chicken burgers or something, but this probably won't be ready to go by this afternoon. I don't know, we'll see. I'm not sure. And we've got the other stuff to be used as well. So at the moment, all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into. So I have my notes here about the quantities, and like everything else, I tend to do it in ratios. So I tend to do certain amounts to get a certain end result. So we've got, I'm going to do it in my Thermomix, so you do it in a food processor of some sort. I need a cutting board. And what I've ended up with is about a 4-to-1 ratio of chicken to the traditional bacon. You can go higher than that, but I find that that's sort of a good amount. Now, I do find that the Thermomix only likes around about the 500 bit plus connection. Connection, said connection on my screen. So the pork is a kilo. So that means that we've got 1 piece per kilo of chicken meat. So we're going to use, they're not very evenly sized. But so we're going to use around about 250 grams per half kilo of chicken. Man, brain's not working properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, this is a trim, so this is already somewhat ground up. I'm going to put this half kilo of chicken trim in. I'm going to put about 250 grams of the pork. Sorry, 125-ish grams, because we're going to split it into 8 because we got 4 kilos divided by the 500 grams. So about that. Then we're adding some white pepper. Couple of grams of white pepper. We're going to add some sugar. Can you grab me the sugar jar, please? and the chicken bouillon, the gnaw. So we're going to add, where are we? About half a tablespoon of the chicken powder, which is going to be our onion, garlic, and MSG type addition. We're going to add a couple of teaspoons of sugar, so like 10 grams of sugar, and then we're going to add some cornstarch, which we're going to add around about sort of 20 grams of that. We're going to blend this up, and then we're going to add some cold water as needed. So that was about 30 seconds. Now, because it was frozen, it's not quite as fine as we want. So I'm going to add that little bit of water, just like 10 grams of water, a little drizzle. And we're going to put this back on. Actually forgot to put salt in this, didn't I? Yeah, you did. It's alright. It's got the chicken bouillon, and we'll add sauce to the... So then we've got this sticky, bouncy texture. So now we're going to put it in a bowl, and then I'm going to repeat the process 7 more times. Alright, so there is 5 kilos of chicken farce ready to be turned into chicken nuggets, patties, whatever else. I'm going to cling wrap this, stick it in the bottom of the fridge where it's nice and cold, and let all the flavours emulsify, and then I'll come out later and I'll do the whole shaping and whatever else of it. But for the moment this is done, and I'm just going to clean up. Alright, the pork belly is not quite defrosted yet, and it's already 2:30, so I don't want to cook it with any sort of frozen bits in it because it's already a long cook. So I'm going to make some brioche rolls because it's 2:30. I'll do them yeasted. We'll have plenty of time to get them sorted. The shade cloth has moved, and the glare just here is really bad at the moment. Just warm some water in the kettle so that I can use warm water to make sure that these proof on time. But I'm just going to do my normal brioche roll recipe. It's on the website, and I might put the other half of this tin in the fridge and make something with tomorrow. Some other scroll recipe or something. So we want 900 grams of milk water mix. I am going to use some of my starter because I haven't used it, so that I can feed it again. It's going to use all of the discard that's in here and feed it. Generous with the yeast because we need them for this evening. Sugar and oil, a bit of salt, and then Kavik wants to add the flour. So we're going to add 1,300 grams of flour, or 1,250 grams of flour. It's fine, it's close enough. It'll be a few scoops. Just a little bit more. And I'll have to bring it together and see what it's like with that first bit wasn't measuring for some reason. So you want to find the dough hook for me? Right, with Kavik's help, using the starter in there as well, and the scale's not working, this has ended up very wet, but that's fine. I have enough experience and skills to be able to make it work anyway. So it is not quite doubled, but that's fine because we're going to do another proof of it. Though it's sticking to there we go. Generally speaking, your dough is proofed enough if it comes away from your container without too much left behind. Alright, so now the goal. What?
I'm going to put this back in the tray because someone's going to do something for me for now.
Okay. And then bring it together with that bit of flour underneath it, just so that we've got a surface we can work with. We don't want to incorporate too much flour, but at the same time we still need to be able to handle it. Now I need some trays should have got first. One to start with, and we're going to do around about 90 grams because these are hamburger buns is the idea. First ones are always harder to guess the weight because every dough weighs slightly differently depending on how proofed it is, how wet it is, and all the rest of it. So once you've got an idea of the first ball, you get better at being able to realize what size you need for the thing. So I really should have mixed up some of Darryl's too, actually. I think I've still got some keto flour. I'm going to try making them wetter again than what I did last time so that I can get them to spread out more into the hamburger, thin hamburger type roll. But we're just going to do this for the moment. 90 grams, well floured to make it easier to roll up. And then like normal, bringing all the rough bits into the middle is basically what I'm doing. And then all those joint bits are on my hand, and by rolling it around and round and round, you get it all somewhat neat on the bottom. So we shall just keep on going with those, and I'll get these proofing. Alright, just preheating the oven for the buns with the buns on top to finish their proofing. And in the meantime, we're going to sort this out. Now, I'm not going to do it all right now because it's already 4:30, so I'm going to have to finish this tomorrow. I'm just going to do enough for dinner tonight. So what I found was that a scoop like this ended up being about the 90 to 100 grams, which was perfect for what we were after. And normally I would do this and then I would freeze them for a while, which would make them a bit easier to handle, but we need some for dinner tonight. So I'm just going to make it work. So just going to make enough patties for everyone for dinner tonight. And I, of course, have the camera angle wrong because I didn't look at it. So, scoop. A little bit of oil on the paper. And then damp hands. And I just squish it out. I actually saw some of those rounds, the hamburger round baking paper things on Temu, I think it was, the other day, and thought that they would work really well, not only for hamburgers, but for this sort of thing too, where I flatten them and freeze them like this, and then I deal with them later. So we're going to need, we'll do 2 for everyone just because that works. I forgot, I said I was going to do some of Darryl's rolls up and I forgot, but I will do them. He'll just have to have the chicken and something else for tonight, and I will do some of his rolls for him tomorrow or the next day or whatever. So for 8 of us, we'll do the 16 so that everyone has 1 for now, 1 for tomorrow if that's what they want, or 2 for now. Some people like them on the rolls, some people just have them as like large nuggets. The first time I did them, I did make some small like chicken nugget size ones, but in the end that's just more work for me to make them in chicken nugget size, and none of my kids are small enough that they need, you know, me to cater to chicken nugget size. And so instead they can have like 2 patty size or 10 chicken nugget size and end up being the same quantity. So this works for me. So I'm just going to flatten them all out, and then once I've got them I will bread them. Nice flat rolls A little bit of egg wash just to brown them up and to stick the sesame seeds to. And I need these eggs for the chicken anyway, so it worked well. I also had a little bit of excess dough that I just platted really, really quickly that I'm going to put an egg wash on and some pearl sugar. And it can be had with some jam and cream for dessert because it's a brioche roll. So they are done, and then there's just a small plait. There we go. So we're just going to throw all these in the oven. Only about 25 minutes is all they take while I bread the chicken. Because they're not frozen, they are going to be a little harder to manipulate, but we will make it work. I have some panko crumbs here that I've just crumbled some of them so that we've got some different textures in there. I've got some flour and I've got some egg, and not enough room to do what I need to do, as per usual, even though I've created more room for myself. All right, so we just dip them. They're going to be a bit messy because they're not going to be as firm. Normally I do them from some time in the freezer. So all I'm going to do is dip in the flour gently, and I just used the wrong hand there. Gently pat some into the egg. Again, as I said, texture wise, they're not the most optimal. And then into the panko crumb, and we will try and keep them as uniform as possible, and then place it back here for the moment because I'm still doing the oil, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to egg, flour, all of them. Right, so the buns came out. These are the hamburger buns, yummy yummy. And then the patties have been fried off. I got them on a rack over there, so this is what they look like. Crunchy, we need to scrape, crunchy chicken patties. I'm going to make some fresh mayo up, and we'll have them probably just cheese, chicken and pickles and mayo on burgers because I don't really have any greens or anything at the moment. But that will be dinner tonight. I'll take a photo of it when I made them up. Alright, it is Wednesday. It is late. I'm getting a very late start. It's 2 o'clock. We had leftover hamburger buns with eggs and cheese and mayo and stuff for lunch. Now I need to get this farce in the freezer. I also have the sausage mince that I need to do something with. So I need to work on that and figure out dinner. I do have some pork belly that needs to be used, but pork will last another day in the fridge if need be. The beef sausage mince probably needs something done with it. Don't know yet. So what I've got to do first though is the chicken farce into sausage patty style pieces, into sort of like chicken patty, burger patty, whatever style pieces, so it can be frozen and breaded later. Now, I mentioned that I was going to buy the hamburger rounds, the baking paper that was already in rounds for hamburgers, and I didn't end up doing it, and I'm regretting that now because when I did freeze these last time, I froze them on like baking trays like this, except that because you couldn't quite line them up square, some of them ended up a bit curved, which isn't an issue unless you're trying to flatten them into a sausage patty, or bread them first frozen. Like when they were curved, it made breading them really difficult. So the plan here is that if I stack them somewhat uniformly on their individual papers, then maybe that will solve that issue. But I also don't want to take too much extra time doing it either. So I'm seeing if this is going to, it shouldn't really take any extra time. Like I'm just doing it once I get the first layer done, maybe then it'll all even out. Though it looks like I forgot to run the scissors through that bit. So all I did was fold and cut, but obviously I missed the scissor line in that particular pile. So yeah, I'm just going to keep flattening and placing on top like this to try and keep them somewhat uniformly round and not curving. That's the idea anyway. So I'm just going to keep on going, use a bit of oil where needed, flatten them all out and get them done. Time consuming job, but I will appreciate it when I'm using it, which is what I have to remind myself all the time when doing this sort of thing, is that doing in bulk like this feels so arduous when I'm doing it, but I will appreciate it next time I want something quick to put on a burger or to serve. These are nice served with veggies and mash and stuff too. They're just chicken patties. And anything shallow fried and crumbed is always tasty. So, you know. And just gonna keep on going, get as many, well, just finish this whole bowl of chicken, get it in the freezer so that it doesn't go bad. That is the goal. All right, so I've got 36, 6 stacks of 6. It's hit that time of day where the glare is really bad again. 6 stacks of 6 of the patties, and I've probably got half again, the mince left to go. So I'm going to stick this tray in the freezer, and start another one just so that we get them nice and frozen through as quickly as possible, sort of thing. So yeah, there's 36. We'll probably get another 18, 20. So I'll just keep on going. All right, so it made exactly half again. So we ended up, which was what I made before, the 18. So we've ended up with 72 all up for the 5-ish kilos of mince with that ice cream scoop. So that works quite well. So I was curious as to the about 70 grams each is what they've ended up being. Yep, they're all ranging from 68 to 75. So that's a pretty good size for the patties. 75 odd grams each patty, and then yeah, the crumbs and stuff like that. But 72 of them out of that 5 kilo mix of chicken and bacon and all that. So we're all good. I'm going to stick these in the freezer as well. And then all that is ready to go next time we want to cook them. All right, so let's get this pork belly sorted. Now I'm going to cut it into strips to cook because it's quite late. I'm going to sharpen my knife. All right, I'm going to cut it into like strips and score it into like bite-sized pieces because it is getting late in the day, but I want to cook it. So I'm going to, there we go, we got it in strips, and then I'm going to score it into like bite-sized pieces. I got the oven preheating to the top temperature available, and then I'm going to put this on a tray and at top temperature for a good half an hour, and then I will turn it down and I'll add some potatoes. So baking tray, I'm going to buy myself some silicone thingies. I keep on meaning to and forgetting. So we're just going to place this on here slightly separated so that it will cook a little bit quicker, like that. I'm going to grab some paper towel and I'm just going to dry it off. I'm going to give it a good spray of oil just to help it initially do its thing, and a generous sprinkle of salt on each strip. Now this probably isn't really enough for all 8 of us, but I've got this sausage mince to do something with as well, so we'll make it a joint meal. Some of the kids aren't hugely enamoured on pork belly anyway, so I'm going to throw that one in the oven. Next up, I'm going to turn this mince into risole type things. Alright, so I'm going to do these very similarly to my French onion meatballs. So first up, I'm going to grate up a onion. I should just do this in the Thermomix actually, because I'm going to do 3 of them. So save my hands. Do 3 large onions into a really fine mince. So I've got a finely minced onion, lots of liquid in it, which is what we want. And we're just going to put all of it into the big bowl. My eyes are watering for some reason. I don't normally have too much problem with onions. This one has some good fumes on it. And then I'm going to put some breadcrumbs in with the onion. So these are homemade breadcrumbs, so they got really nice coarse texture, which I like. So there's a couple of cups. We don't need too many because we're using sausage mince, so the sausage mince has theoretically got some emulsifier in it anyway, but we're going to moisten those breadcrumbs with the onion. And then we're going to grab our sausage mince, which has this red tinge to it because it was, I didn't want any sausages, but I said just everything in mince, and they gave me some that was straight beef mince, but they gave me some that they'd seasoned like sausages as well, so that's fine. Alright, so all of this should be fairly defrosted. So we've got 3 kilos of mince here, along with the breadcrumbs. Alright, I'm going to grab some eggs, probably 3, 1 per kilo. Actually, I've got a couple of turkey eggs that need using, these lovely big speckled eggs, and a chicken egg. So we'll use these 3. So we got 3 eggs. We'll add some garlic, just some minced garlic in there. I've got some Dijon mustard, dollop of. Some Worcestershire, the homemade Worcestershire, and then some of my French onion soup mix. So some of my homemade dry French onion soup mix as well. And then we'll blend this together and we'll have a look at the texture. Alright, this texture is a little wetter than I would like, so I'm going to add another 1.5 cups, I think, of breadcrumbs. Again, nice coarse breadcrumbs because they create little pockets when you cook, and they don't make them heavy. They make them have more of an airy, lighter texture. I'm pretty happy with that texture now. It's soft still, but it's not going to break apart if I try and move it around. So that is all mixed up. So now I'm going to clean up and then we'll decide how we're going to cook these.
All right, it's only 3:30. My mic battery is almost dead. I don't want to cook this just yet. I'm going to cover it in plastic and stick it in the fridge, let the flavours sort of set up. And then I think I'm going to fry all these because I'm going to have the pork belly in the oven with potatoes and stuff. I'm not going to have enough room to bake them, and I just want to get them done. So I think I'm just going to use the scoop like I did with the sauce, with the chicken, create patties this sort of size, do the normal, put a little bit of indent in the middle when I'm frying them off so that they stay flatter, and just do it that way. But for the moment, I'm going to stick it in the fridge while I do other stuff, just so that I can charge my mic, but because it's a bit early to start them. All right, so I've just used the scoop, got scoops out, shaped them into a ball, and I'm just going to flatten them out in the pan, and I'm just going to make sure that there's a little bit of a indent in the middle to stop them from bubbling up in the middle, and they're just going to be little rissoles like that, cooked off in the cast iron, and they can be used for whatever. I was thinking that I might make some pizza dough. Some of these could be crumpled up on pizza as toppings as well, so we'll just cook them all off and then we'll see. And this is what we ended up with, a tray full of rissoles to use how we want. This is how the pork belly strips turned out. This lovely crunchy pork belly, roasted potato, steamed veg, rissoles, and then a little bit of gravy. And there we go, that was dinner. Right, so Thursday morning, I'm going to mix up pizza dough and we will have pizza tonight. I will use some of those meat patties to top it. There was a request to cook a couple of the chicken patties. We could use some of the chicken strips on some as well. Do a sort of an all meat one. We've got some pepperoni left, cheese, pizza sauce, basics, but it'll be tasty. So I'm going to make my standard pizza dough that I make, but I am going to use my sourdough starter because again it's doubled and starting to fall and I haven't used it for anything, and I'm just going to keep on using it to maintain it so that I can feed it, so that if I want to use it, it's there. So it's well and truly, it's like tripled pretty much. So it's super healthy. I just have to get timing right. I will put it in a fresh jar today though, because I'm not using it as often. I don't like it sitting in the same jar all the time, so it's a pain because washing these jars sucks, but I will. So I'm just going to find some spatulas. It's a red lid. Should be around somewhere. Can you find me another one of these jars as well, please, and a spatula? Now, the other thing I need to do is the beef today. I have to remember to do that. So what I might do is make that into pie filling, and I can make pie with it. And that way I can cook it today. It'd be cool for the next day. The kids just boiled the kettle for hot chocolate. So I've got some hot water here that I'm going to add cold water to. Thank you. So I need 700 grams of water all up. The pizza dough recipe is on my, on the website. Though I probably should have reduced that for the fact that I'm putting starter in it, but that's fine. We will adjust the texture if need be. And I'm just going to, it's still floating, so it's still actually, so I might use that last little bit to do a dough that I might let overproof to be focaccia. And use that chunk in there, which was about 60 grams of starter. And it is actually, let me see if I can show you. It is actually floating. It's lifting up the off the bottom, which means that it is theoretically active and works, but I don't know. Anyway, so we'll put that in there. Now, I'm thinking that that works, like, even if I'm using yeast, it's kind of working like a, I don't know how you pronounce it, like a tanzong, which is the cooked flour and water that you use to help hydrate your dough and keep it moist, because basically that's what starter is. It's an already fermented dough mix that's going to help keep the dough moist and things like that. So that's the goal here. We're going to do that. All right, we need to add some oil until it was cold here overnight because the olive oil is semi-solid. I need to order those lights today for in here because with that wall up, it is definitely darker in here. So we just want, thank you, 50 grams of oil. And then I did ask Kavik, but he didn't, could you find me another one of these jars to move my starter into, please? 50 grams of oil. And I need a new yeast because you dropped that other one. All right, and we're going to use I'm going to use about 15 grams of yeast because we want it to proof fairly quickly so that I can shape it and get it in the fridge for as much of the day as possible, sort of thing. So 15 grams of yeast. We're going to add a little bit of sugar to help push that yeast as well, just 20 grams. A couple of teaspoons full. All right, and then we just want flour. Which we're going to put the 1100 to 1150 in, probably 1150 because we're going to end, we'll start with 1100. We might have to add that extra 50 just because of the starter and stuff in there. Put this on to knead, and then I'll just mix up a simple dough with the rest of that starter and just 5 grams of yeast to see if we can get a sort of an overproof dough for a focaccia for tomorrow morning, for lunch tomorrow or whatever. So we'll start that. All right, and we'll just do the standard dough that we're going to get to proof nice and quickly. So we'll do, for some reason my scales are not zeroing. Why are my scales not zeroing? All right, so I'm going to oil this and scrape the pizza dough into it, and I'm going to let it almost double, and then I will, there's a bit of fluff in the bottom of the, almost double, and then I will shape it into balls into the individual containers and put it in the fridge until we're ready to use it. And theoretically have pizza for dinner tonight. So I'll put this in here. I'll put this over on the bench. I'm not going to put it in the proofing box because I don't want it to go too quickly and get too much heat in it, and then when it goes in the fridge it's not going to stop fermenting enough. And it's warm enough today. It's not warm, but it's warm enough for a heated yeasted dough. So I'm going to put this aside. All right, and now I'm going to do just that plain dough that I'm looking to overproof for focaccia tomorrow. So we want 375 of liquid all up, and I'm going to put a little bit of the garlic rosemary oil in as well. Dollop of starter that's left in here, with just enough to scrape up to feed the next batch. And then I'm going to add just a teaspoon of yeast, which should be about 5 grams, over the top. And then salt and flour. I forgot salt in the pizza dough, which is a bit of a bummer, but it'll be fine. And then flour. And then we'll mix that together. I'll do some stretch and folds and then let it double, stick it in the fridge, and we'll cook it up tomorrow. All right, this is the really bubbly, what's going to be focaccia tomorrow dough. It's very wet, very bubbly. I'm going to throw it in the fridge just like this because it's already quite puffy, I possibly could even get away with sticking this in a pan now and letting it do its thing. What am I doing for dinner tonight though? Pizza, so we don't need bread for tonight, so I'm going to throw it in the fridge. And then I can pull it out first thing in the morning, let it do its thing, and use it for lunch. The pizza dough is well and truly ready to be shaped as well. So I'm going to split this up into 200 gram balls, I think I normally do. And then we've got the pizza dough containers for each one, which I'm just going to give a wipe out because they've been in the drawer since we did pizza last. Roll them into balls, put them in those, oiled, in the fridge for dinner tonight. So that is the plan. I'm pretty sure I do 200 grams for these. Just going to double check. Right, 1800 grams of dough, so we'll do them in 200 gram pieces. Alright, and all we'll do is we'll shape them into rounds like that. We will spray out the container, we'll pop a lid on them, and we'll keep on going. We'll do all of those. These balls have plenty of room to expand, but they're so much easier to roll out when they're round. So a viewer sent me these off my wish list. I'm very grateful, because yeah, they're exactly what I needed. So I'm going to shape all these, put these in, get these in the fridge, and that dough in the fridge as well. So this is what the dough looks like after being in the fridge all afternoon. It's probably a little overproofed, very slightly, but it's still usable, and we would eat it anyway. You know, try and leave a little bit of a bubble of air around the edges to create the crust, and just gently stretch it into a rough circle without stretching it to tearing. Just like that. And then we've got a homemade pizza sauce. This batch was a little bit thin actually. Some onion jam mixed into the pizza sauce. We have pepperoni still from the hamper stuff that is sort of frozen together, so we're just breaking it up over the pizzas. We've got the corn as usual, the pineapple that I canned, and the hamburger patties, the rissoles from last night as well. So we just gently top them. Break up some rissole. And then we've got the cheese from Costco that I got cheap. And they go in the pizza oven. And then
here's one I prepared earlier.
And this is what they look like cooked.
Sorry, there. There you go.
Yep. I've got the beef that needs to be turned into a stew or a pie filling or whatever. I've just sliced up half a dozen onions into some thin slices, and I'm going to caramelize these off lightly in a pan, a cast iron pan, and then I'm going to flour the beef and stuff to add to it as well, but I'm going to get these cooking off first. Didn't turn the mic on earlier, but I've got some footage here. So the focaccia dough had gone into the fridge after I'd mixed it all up, and I pulled it out this morning. It was pretty well proofed. So then I spread it out, I put it in a baking tray, and I decided to use one of the steel baking trays instead of the cast iron, just because the cast iron takes so long to warm up. I put it in the proofing box with the proofing mat on and let it go for probably a couple of hours until it started to spread out a little bit more. And then I pulled it out and I dimpled it really heavily on the top, added some flaked sea salt and some sesame seeds, and then put it in a really hot oven for about 25 minutes. And this is what it turned out like. So it looks pretty good. This is going to be lunch is the plan. So I want to get it out of the pan and off the baking paper, because that's how you keep the bottom lovely and crispy. So that's the focaccia done, so we're going to slice that up for lunch shortly. I'm not sure exactly what we'll have on it, but we'll have something on it. And yeah, so that was done. So that's a good process. The time taken the next day is quite considerable for it to re-proof. And I did wonder whether, by the looks of it in the fridge, I did wonder, I possibly could have spread it out in the tray and left the tray in the fridge, and it might have been ready to go straight from the oven, from the fridge, because it was really bubbly. I might have been able to just straight away dimple it out and put it in the oven. But because I had to transfer it out of the bowl and into this, it lost a lot of air in that process. I don't know, I'm going to keep experimenting, but this has got some really nice bubbles in it, and hopefully it's really nice to cut up. This sort of thing would be great to be consistently able to do, because I can then use this in the sandwich toaster at work as well. So it makes for really simple lunches. Darryl has to go into town today because he's got, he's taking, he's doing a tip run, doing a rubbish run. So I might get him to get some ham and stuff for me today too, to make these a more consistent thing for me to be able to make and have toppings, because we ran out of ham. I normally have some in the freezer actually, but I think I've used it all in the savoury squirrels. So I'm just going to let that cool, and I'll keep going with the onions. I need to get the beef out. I'll cut up some potatoes, some carrots, that sort of thing. All right, we need to make the brine for the silver side that I'm defrosting. So we're going to add a few things to water, which we will boil. There's no cracked black pepper in there. I thought there was. I have to crack some black pepper first. All right, we have pepper. So the roast that I've got's about, I think it was like 1.8 kilos or something. So I'm going to do I've got a gallon of water in here, 4 litres of water. And to that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of cracked black pepper. I'm going to add a heaped tablespoon of cracked coriander. I've got, she didn't find me any cups, did she? About, let's say 2/3 of a cup of flaked salt. We're going to add similar in sugar. I'm going to add a couple of cinnamon sticks, some thyme, and a couple of bay leaves. And some mustard seeds. I also am going to add some pink salt instant cure. Not necessary, but can if you want. And I'm going to add about, I probably want 30 grams of it for this size roast. This little spoon here is a coffee spoon. It says it's 0.25 ounces, which is just under 30 grams. So I'm just going to use that and just a touch more. It won't do anything. Like, it'll permeate the meat. And if there's not enough meat for it to permeate, then it will just sit static in the water. So it's not an issue. I'm going to bring this to the boil and dissolve all that salt and sugar and the insecure and everything else. And then I will put it over the roast in a container, the silver side, and it will brine for the next 5 to 7 days, and then I will smoke it next weekend, I suppose. So I'm going to bring this to the boil first and dissolve all of that before, and then I need to bring it back down to room temperature before I cover the roast. The beef, when I packed it, I wasn't entirely sure what I was doing with it, and because it's already 1 o'clock, I'm going to dice it up a bit smaller. It's alright. They don't care. And I was telling her too. Alright, I've diced the beef up a bit smaller. I've taken the caramelized onions out of the pan and added some ghee in there, and we're going to flour and season this and fry this off. Then we will add, we'll pull this, we'll cook some, I was going to put some mirepoix in there, but I don't know if I want to because I found some carrots in the fridge and stuff, so I probably won't. So we'll cook this off, we'll add the onions back in, we'll add some tomato paste and cook that off, and then we'll start adding veggies and liquid and stuff, and it'll be whatever it's going to be. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing with it yet. So I'm just going to add some flour, some salt, but my salt jar's empty. Alright, we'll put 2 of those tablespoons of salt in there and a heaped one of pepper, and we'll just coat this off and fry it off in that ghee. Flour will add the thickening to the stew or pie filling or whatever I do with this, and some schmaltz to the bottom of the pan as well. And I'll do this in like 4 or 5 batches in the oil so that it doesn't crowd the pan out, because we don't want to stew the meat, we want to brown it. Alright, I put the beef and the onion back in and I added the tomato paste to cook off. I'm going to add enough liquid just to get all the schmaltz off the bottom of the pan, because then I'm going to have to move it into a larger pot. But I want to get all the crusty bits off the bottom because they are flavour. So we'll add enough stock to bring all that up off the bottom and turn it down to low so we can scrape all that up and deglaze the pan with that, and then I will transfer it to a bigger pot so I can add the veggies to it. Alright, I've transferred it to one of my larger stock pots. I have half a dozen carrots that I have diced up into smallish pieces because it is already 2 o'clock, so this is only going to cook for 3 or 4 hours. So I want small bits and pieces. And then there was probably 8 potatoes left, so I diced them up as well. And then I'm going to add water, and probably the French onion soup mix that I made will be a good flavour profile to add as like a bouillon mix for a beef stew. So I'm just going to mix that up. I'll add probably half a gallon of liquid, I suppose. We'll see. End of the chicken stock. And 2 litres or half a gallon of water. And that should be enough to keep everything moist. Some of that will reduce as the potatoes and the carrots cook. And then I've got homemade French onion soup mix. I don't know, a packet's about 35 grams, so we'll go for a generous amount, and then half of what was left in the jar, we'll add the other half if need be. And then we'll just let this come up to a simmer We'll taste the broth and adjust things as required, but it will basically just simmer for the next couple of hours.
Mother.
While the stew was simmering and Mum was down here having a chat with me, though I'm having trouble keeping it low enough to not burn. I need to like lift it, diffuse it off the thing somewhat. Let me have a think. I mixed up a couple of just really quick doughs. Yeasted, put them in my heat box, and they've well and truly proofed already. So I'm just going to knock them down because I need them to be less less proofed. I'm just going to knock them down and smooth them out a bit, and then I might let them sit once more, because they've definitely proofed up awfully quick. I did use warm water and I have put them in my proofing box, but still, the boys made some muffins using the muffin mix, so I probably didn't come out as quickly as I should have. But we're just gonna slap and fold these a little bit, give them a good massage through, put them back for another 15 minutes, and then I might shape them. They're just to be a rough dough, so I might even preheat my dough ovens while once the muffins are finished, because the oven's already on. So I might preheat the bread ovens and just now let that relax slightly, and then shape it a little bit better, and then just throw them in there to be cooked nice and quick. All right, we're going super simple, nice, neat, round, as neat as we can get it. A bit of flour onto a baking paper and nice clean slit into bread oven and into the oven. Got the second one, so a bit of flour on the board, tip it out with it's a bit of a sloppy dough, and I haven't worked it anywhere near as much as I should. There's nowhere near as much tension on this as there should be, but we're just going to use that bit of flour on the board to pull this in and wrap it, and then flip it and create as much tension as we can without being overly worried and trying not to pop too much air out. Simple like that. Crunch our paper just so it fits in the bread oven a bit better. Place it on paper. This one's a little stickier. Just give it some nice deep scores. Stick in the bread oven, pop it in the oven. This is what the bread looks like. Very misshapen. As I said, I didn't give it enough tension at all because I walked away. I also forgot to turn it down when I took the lid off, and then I went elsewhere and did other things, so I forgot. So it's going to be a very crusty, fairly dense loaf, but that is what I was going for anyway, because we're going to eat it with the stew. So I'm cutting it while it's hot, which means it's quite dense anyway, because it will because the steam is escaped. It's just the way it is. If you cut bread when it's hot, this sort of thing happens. So that is the bread anyway. Ready to go. Super soft and tender crumb, but just a bit dense, but it's meant for scooping up stew, so that's what we got. The stew ended up lovely and thick like this, The beef probably could have been cooked a little bit longer, and if I had thought about it, I would have put it in the slow cooker, because I do have trouble keeping it simmering without burning things on the bottom on the stovetop, and I say that every time, which is why I bought a slow cooker. But I do have to start it early enough in the morning for the slow cooker to be valid, and I forgot. So that's what we can do, is we're going to serve up stew with bread, everyone can help themselves, and that's it for today. Actually, one last thing to do, the silver side's in there, and I just have to pour the brine over it. Probably overdid the brine, but oh well, it all fits in the container, so that's the main thing. So lid will go on that, and it'll go in the fridge for probably 7 days. I might rotate the meat occasionally just to make sure that none of the sides are pressing against the edges of the container and not absorbing the brine. But other than that, it'll go in the fridge 5 to 7 days, lid on it. And then after that, I will smoke it as like a pastrami type thing, because that's the way we really like it. So it'll probably be next week, Friday maybe, that I will smoke it and then slice it for cold meat for the weekend.